pottery, that the terracotta and clay pots, when they fired them, sometimes there would be small fissures and small cracks in them. So what the vendors would do, they would take wax and smear over the cracks. So if somebody wanted to test it when they're buying the pot, they wouldn't know that there was a crack in it and that it would leak. Some people hung up their and sold their glass jar wares, their clay pot wares, and they would say, without wax, sin theta, without wax. It's not fake. It's genuine. It's the real article. This word is used time and time again in the New Testament. It doesn't put a face on the external only. It's coming from the inside. If a saint does not have a love which is genuine, without hypocrisy, the trouble is with the person. The person from the inside. A Spirit-filled saint does not have to play at loving. Love shines forth out of them. I was thinking about this morning as I was meditating. And you think about John 3:16. Everybody knows John 3:16. Right? Everybody know John 3:16? Let's say it together. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. We love that verse, don't we? There is great news there. There is gospel news right there. That God so loved us that He gave. As I was thinking about that, thinking through this, what Paul is saying here to the Romans, let love be without hypocrisy. And I was thinking about John 3:16, and just this act. We all want to be recipients of that love. We enjoy being recipients of that love. But what happens when we are impacted by that love? We are not only recipients of this great love of God, this unselfish, unfailing love of God that gives and gives and gives continually to us. The gospel impact on the saint, on the believer, is that we are not only recipients and partakers, we want to give this away. We want it to spread forth. John talked about this in 1 John 3. You want to see practical ways to love? Read 1 John. In 1 John chapter 3, verses 16 through 18, he wrote this: We know love by this, that He, Christ, laid down His life for us. And then John says, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. And then he gets real specific. Just as an example. But whoever has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? Little children, let us not love with word or with tongue, but in deed and truth. A love without hypocrisy is a love that's not going to be inconvenienced. Life is inconvenient, isn't it? It really is. What happens when you're inconvenienced? What happens when you're inconvenienced? We see this in the life of Jesus. He's with the disciples. They've had a long day of ministry. The disciples are saying, okay, Lord, it's time to send them home. Right? We've done our bit. Okay, let's now we're getting into something that's inconvenient for us. So Jesus, we know, on 2 occasions tells them, you give them something to eat. Well, we don't have anything. What do you have? But we see here just the act of Jesus in a practical way. It was inconvenient, and he's trying to teach his disciples many things in this act, in this miracle. But one thing that we do see, that love, his compassion, his love for people is not going to be inconvenienced. He's going to continually give himself, even after he is tired, even after he thinks he is spent, even after he feels like he can't give any more, and then somebody else shows up. Let love be without hypocrisy. It must not be faked. It must not be just empty words. Remember the saying, your deeds speak so loudly that I cannot hear your words. Let love be without hypocrisy. Taking the time to give of yourself to others. You know, as Southerners, what's one of the first things when we see each other? We see each other out in the hallway. How you doing? How you doing? Do you really mean that? I pulled one on a brother one time. I probably shouldn't have did. I probably shouldn't have done this, but I did. He said, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing awful. I'm having a horrible day." And you could tell he was in full stride. He was going by. He was in full stride. And he didn't know what to say. See, it's the little things. Let love be without hypocrisy. Let us genuinely be concerned for one another. Let us genuinely give ourselves to one another. When there is need, we give ourselves, even though it may be inconvenient. Let love be without hypocrisy. And then, right on the heels of that, he says, abhor what is evil, or hate what is evil. Evil is the opposite of holiness. Evil is the opposite of love. We are to hate all that is opposed to God, to goodness. Hate means to loathe, or it's a strong dislike for something. It's implying it's repulsive. It's a desire to avoid, to turn away from something. We are to hate what is evil. Proverbs 8:13 says, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. Pride and arrogance and the evil way and the perverted mouth I hate. Psalm 97:10, hate evil, you who love the Lord, who preserves the souls of his godly ones. He delivers them from the hand of the wicked. We speak of love in 1 Corinthians 13. Love, it does not rejoice at injustice and unrighteousness, but rejoices when right and truth prevail. Again, evil is all that is wicked, all that is morally bad, malice, unkindness, corrupt. Proverbs 6:16 through 19 says, there are 6 things the Lord hates. No, 7 things he detests. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that kill the innocent, a heart that plots evil, feet that race to do wrong, a false witness who pours out lies, a person who sows discord in a family. We are to avoid, we are to flee these things. And we're to cling to what is good. The word cling there is the idea of glue or cement. Glue yourself, cement yourself, fasten yourself to that which is good. Well, what ultimately is good? What is perfect good? God. The things of God, holiness. So to be joined fast together with that which is good. Here it's talking about the Christians should be firmly attached and not separated from. Everything that pertains to kindness and compassion, we should be glued to it. And it's not occasional. It's not irregular. It's the constant. That's the impact of the gospel. That's what God is doing in our lives now in this process of sanctification. We are loving and learning to love without hypocrisy. We are fleeing from and hating what is evil, and we are clinging to what is good. This is our calling. This is what it means to be impacted by the gospel. Then in verse 10, he says, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Devoted and brotherly love are synonymous ideas here. Devoted combines philos or friendship love, and storage in a natural family love that's not based on personal attraction. Brotherly love is Philadelphia, combining phileo, or to have a tender affection, which is a brotherly love. So as a Christ follower, it goes back to what he is talking about being one body, about being in Christ. We are to have brotherly love for one another. It's a devotion to one another, and it marks us off. It shows. So we've got agape. We're called to have agape love without hypocrisy, without unfeigning. And now we're called to a more of a friendship on a friendship level. So it covers it all. This is what we're called to. This is the impact of the gospel on an individual. Being devoted to one another. Again, it's not optional. Again, I quote from 1 John 5:1, whoever believes that Jesus is the Christ is born of God, and whoever loves the Father loves the children born of Him. We have to learn as Christ followers, and in this life and in these circumstances and in these relationships that God has brought into our lives, we are to put into practice what He is calling us to do here in His Word. These are not suggestions here. This is what it looks like to be impacted by the gospel of Jesus Christ. John again says, if someone says, I love God and hates his brother, he's a liar. For the one who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. We are called to love and give ourselves to one. Is that easy? No. Is it supernatural? Yeah. Yeah. And we work at it all the time. We are so dependent on the Spirit of God to love like this, to give ourselves like this. It's not in our own strength that we've been called to do this. Faithful is He who has called us to this. And He will do it. He will perfect this in us until the day of the coming of Christ, until the advent of Christ, which we so long for.